So this sparked a completely different, deeper layer and dimension to my healing journey where I started delayering. I started becoming curious about all of these layers of repressed emotions that I had been carrying, about why I did the things that I did and how I operated in these certain patterns that had me showing up and directing my energy and effort in certain ways that actually shaped my behaviors and choices. And it just so happened that at this same time, I was creating my own business where I still felt that heavy sense of pressure to perform and to achieve, even though I had no external demands or expectations on what it was that I was doing. So this is the first time I realized that it was me, myself, and I, and that pressure wasn't coming from anything or anyone external to me. It was actually coming from within me. And once I started to unpack where that pressure was coming from, I started to explore the concept of the inner critic, how that creates pressure within our system, how that translates into the tension and stress that is felt and held within our bodies and within our systems, and how that is often a large contributing factor to the stress that is linked to inflammation and the symptoms that come along with autoimmune flares. And so that is exactly what I want to discuss within this video, starting with what the inner critic actually is. So my perception of the inner critic is almost as if it is this internal voice within our head, these thoughts that come up that often dictate or react to what it is that we are doing or not doing, how we're doing it, what we are saying or not saying. And the important thing to understand is that it often critiques what it is that we are doing or not doing, saying or not saying, based on this internal set of conditions or imprints or rules around what we have deemed to be acceptable or approved of compared to what we have considered to be unacceptable or disapproved of. So a lot of the time, the inner voice and inner critic sounds like the shoulds. You should be doing this. You shouldn't have said that. You should be further along by now. You didn't do that well enough. This doesn't look good enough. A lot of shoulds that often carry the undertone of criticism that either sound like too muchness or not enoughness. And while this voice can seem like part of us, it actually isn't. It's often the internalized voices and criticisms that we heard much earlier in life, either through our caregivers, mom, dad, or through school, through communities, through culture. And because we are dependent on our caregivers for our safety and for our survival, we are wired to maintain connection, to please and appease them. And similarly, we are wired to maintain belonging within our community, within our culture, because historically our safety has depended on it. So over time, we start to learn what is approved of, what is accepted, what earns us validation and love, and we express more of those traits, aspects of ourselves, and expressions. And we also learn what is disapproved of, what is shamed, and even what is punished. And to protect ourselves, we start to express less of those aspects of ourself, traits, or expressions. And this is essentially how that inner voice, the voice of the inner critic, is formed. It is ultimately formed to protect us from any sense of rejection, abandonment, shame, or humiliation, to help us get our needs met. The challenge, though, is when those ways of protecting ourselves in the past are no longer serving us and instead start to limit us. So if we go back to my example, I had learned to prioritize achievement and performance because that's how I received validation and approval and what I experienced to be love as a child. And so I prioritized my effort and energy into my performance, into my career, into achievement, as well as to giving to others. But I also did so at the expense of my own health, my own well being, my own needs, and my own emotions a lot of the time. So, this is an example of how these beliefs and survival strategies can start to become detrimental and can start to actually negatively impact our health and well being. And that pressure to show up based on what we think we should be doing or how we think we should be doing is essentially controlling certain aspects of self, repressing certain aspects of self, or trying to perfect certain aspects of our expression in order to protect us from some real or perceived rejection, which creates this pressure within our system. That sense of internal pressure, that internal should, is actually a large contributor to the hidden sources of stress that we experience that is often correlated with inflammation and autoimmune disease. Not only that, but when we act from the energy of should, it feels like an obligation, and oftentimes it's not necessarily fully aligned with our truth, which results in us extending energy, giving, and doing from obligation, which can be depleting energetically over time. And if you compare that to acting from the energy of desire, desiring to do something or show up for someone or give something from our heart because it is something that we care about, something that we're passionate about, oftentimes, even though we are extending energy and giving, we are also being energized from it because we are being fulfilled. And so at the same time of giving, we are often also receiving. But when the majority of our actions are actually coming from the energy of obligation or of should, of this conditioning, and bypassing our truth in the process, that energetic depletion over time is also linked to anemia and fatigue, which comes along with so many autoimmune symptoms. And again, over time, that restriction, that repression of what it is that you truly feel or what you truly want creates tension and stress within the system. So we talked about how the concept of the inner critic actually relates to that inner felt sense of pressure, how that can create tension and stress within the body and system that is often correlated with inflammation and the symptoms that we experience along with autoimmune flares. We also talked about how that relates to this felt sense of obligation and how over time acting from that should and that obligation, especially when it bypasses our own truth, needs, or desire, creates chronic energy depletion and is linked to fatigue and anemia. And the last piece that I want to discuss is how the concept of the inner critic psychologically and energetically is actually mirrored and expressed through the body physiologically. So with autoimmune disease, how we often perceive it is that the body is attacking a part of itself. And as we discussed, the inner critic is that part of us that is essentially attempting to filter, control, or police what it is that we are doing or saying in order to protect us from some real or perceived pain, usually of rejection, abandonment, disapproval, or humiliation. And if we look at the inner dynamics at play, oftentimes in a split second, this is carried out subconsciously where we are either going to do something or say something, or we are in the process of it, or we just have. And there is that part of us that comes up to actually filter through what it is that is acceptable or not. So we tend to attempt to control our expression of self into what we deem to be acceptable. It can look like perfecting. It can also look like repressing or rejecting certain aspects of ourself or truth. And so this attempt to protect ourselves from rejection on the external often turns into an internal rejection first. And while we are often unaware that this is occurring, we generally do feel and experience the shame, pressure, and internal criticism that come along with this dynamic. We can also criticize ourselves after the fact if something that we did or said is not actually in line with how we perceive we should be in order to be acceptable, approved of, and loved. And as I have delayered the deeper energetic patterns and dynamics present beneath the autoimmune symptoms that I used to experience, what I've come to realize is that the body often reflects that which we are not consciously aware of, that which we have repressed, denied, or disowned within ourselves. And in particular, those areas of our self and our expression that actually deviate from truth. So when we consider the energetic and psychological rejection of self that is often occurring when we bypass or filter certain aspects of our truth and expression, oftentimes this very much mirrors what is going on within the body physiologically. Not because the body is broken or faulty, but because it is a highly intelligent, completely objective projection field that is actually inviting us back into ourselves and into deeper truth. So often, there are much quieter symptoms that either appear within our life as conflict, as these quiet knowings that we need to slow down, that we need to tend to something within ourselves, which then often turn into quieter symptoms or signals or aches or pain within our body. Again, inviting deeper understanding, deeper exploration. And because so much of the time we aren't aware that the body is often communicating with us and that there is a profound link between what is occurring within us psychologically and energetically and what we are experiencing physiologically, we often ignore those signals. And so they build up over time and get louder and louder and louder to finally get our attention. That certainly was the case for me. And when we start to view symptoms and expressions from our body as information, as feedback, and as invitations, this opens up very different conversations and, in my opinion, much more empowering conversations than when we view symptoms as pathology to be managed and silenced. So if this conversation is resonating with you, if you are experiencing chronic symptoms and you desire to start to understand the deeper energetic layers that may be present, I invite you to start to consider what your relationship is with your inner voice. If it often sounds critical, if you experience the pressure of obligation or to show up for others or to perform, if you often function at a level that bypasses what you actually need, what you feel, and your true capacity, and perhaps if you are even in touch with your greater needs and capacity. I know I wasn't. And I know that when I reflect back, a lot of the time, what I can see is that my body was often saying no in all of the ways that I wasn't aware I needed to, and in all of the ways that I couldn't at the time. If you'd like to go even deeper, I have a free guided rooting practice that I have linked below that you can utilize to start to gently open up the lines of communication with your body and to start to explore whether there are deeper energetic layers present beneath the symptoms that you experience. So you can either use this practice by pulling up the underlying energy beneath a symptom and witnessing what emerges within your body in terms of the felt sensations present, or you can actually take your relationship with your own inner critic, with this felt sense of pressure, obligation, or whatever emerged for you through listening to this video into your practice to start to explore and witness what comes up. I hope that this supports you in your exploration of what it is that your body is expressing. And at minimum, I hope that it opens your awareness to seeing your symptoms as being feedback and communication from your body rather than something that is faulty or broken within you. If this conversation sparked something in you, these are the exact types of conversations that we have on this channel. My name is Natalie Andrea, and I'm a somatic facilitator, a master energy healer, and an energy medicine teacher. And beyond all of these labels, my approach and perspective is primarily rooted in my own direct experience navigating and resolving these severe autoimmune symptoms that I used to experience. I now help women experiencing autoimmune symptoms to deeply reconnect with their bodies, to understand and address the deeper energetic roots that are often present beneath physical symptoms, and to develop a foundation of the perspectives, the internal capacity, and the tools to continue addressing these energetic layers going forward. I invite you to subscribe to continue receiving these videos and insights, and I am wishing you so much love on your healing journey.